Hello. My group members consist of Akira Davis-Hutchins, Jacqueline Livingston, and myself, Chantel Sands, and we are going to be talking about the interviewing process. So you have been searching for a dream job. You have prepared an outstanding resume, submitted an application for an opening at a reputable company, and now the employer wants to meet with you. You should be very excited as this is your chance to get that dream job you've been searching for. Now comes the challenging part, a successful interview. There's a lot of preparation required to accomplish that goal. Now, understanding what an interview is and the different ways it can be conducted is the first thing you need to do. So what is an interview, you ask? An interview is a method used by a representative of a company to select employees, and it is an opportunity as a candidate to reveal your skills in an effort to persuade the potential employer to hire you. The interviewer asks questions to determine what skills the applicant possesses, as well as what he or she will contribute to the success of the company. Now, interviews are based on three items: structure, style, and meaning. Now, structure pertains to how the interview is conducted, based on the types of questions that are asked, whether all applicants are asked the same questions, and the scoring methods. There are two types of interviews that fall under this category. You have structured interviews and unstructured interviews. The structured interviews are conducted in a way that the employer will ask you questions that are strictly related to the functions or duties of the job, as gathered from the job analysis. Every candidate is asked the same exact questions during the interview, and they are all scored or evaluated on a standardized scale. Unstructured interviews are the opposite. The interviewers are allowed to ask you subjective questions such as, where do you see yourself in 5 years? These interviews do not necessarily ask everyone the same questions or rate them on the same scale. Because of this, the unstructured interviews can be unreliable and less valid, which makes structured interviews the more preferred method. Now, the style of the interview is determined by the number of people being interviewed and the number of people that will actually conduct the interview, as well as some things such as the geographical location of the applicants and the interviewers. Now, the one-on-one interview, that's as simple as it sounds. One interviewer interviews the applicant at one time. If the employer schedules multiple interviews back to back, this is known as a serial interview. The second style is the panel interview, which is conducted with several interviewers in the same room taking turns asking the applicant questions, all at the same time. The final style is the group interview. Now, this method allows multiple applicants to be interviewed by one or more people at the same time. Now, another part of preparing for the interview is understanding what medium the employer will be using to conduct the interview. The medium can be face-to-face, by telephone, written, or you can even do a video conference. Knowing which method will be used is essential in preparing both the employer and the potential employee for the success of the job. Now, in the face-to-face interview, you and the interviewer are in the same room asking questions and exchanging information. This is an excellent method where both of you can learn a little bit about each other through maybe facial expressions, body language, or gestures. Telephone interviews are conducted by the telephone, and these type of interviews may reduce some of the nervousness or anxiety that you may feel during a face-to-face interview. Now, the written interview involves you answering a series of questions provided by the employer and returning that form back to the company by mail or electronic submission for evaluation. A newer, exciting medium of interviewing is the video conferencing. This is done via the webcam. This method loses the personal face-to-face feel, though, but offers a visual and voice alternative to simulate a traditional interview. So now that the interview has been scheduled, you know how the interview will be conducted, and you need to prepare yourself to increase the chances of landing that dream job. How do you go about this? Preparation is the key to success. As we said, preparation is the key to success. Don't go into the interview with the attitude that you're just going to wing it. No matter how seasoned you are, take every opportunity at the interview and act like it's your first one. The first step to successfully gaining employment is setting a great first example. Chances are you're not the only candidate applying and interviewing for the job. You must set yourself apart from the next person. At the end of the interview, you are the person you would like the employer to remember, right? So how do you go about this? Do your research and be prepared. Before you go into the interview, do some homework about the company you're about to meet with. By having some basic facts, the interviewer will be impressed because you have shown genuine interest in the company you are seeking employment with, as opposed to just looking for a job. Employers like employees who know something about the products or services they sell. If you take the time to invest in learning about the company, the employer may presume that you are a good investment for them. You can easily search and find basic facts, figures, and the mission statement or value statement on the internet using search engines such as Google. Being armed with this information and sharing this during your interview will certainly impress the prospective employer. Punctuality is also a major concern for employers. Never arrive late to an interview. One of the most important tasks is to remember the date, the time, and location of the interview. It would be beneficial to repeat the information to the caller who is scheduling the interview with you to make sure you get that information correct. Missing an interview can cause the employer to believe that you aren't responsible enough or serious about actually wanting the position. Occasionally, things happen such as heavy traffic, bad weather, or unavoidable accidents. The best thing to do is to allow yourself ample time just in case something does go wrong. This will also make things easier for you. In the case of an emergency or unavoidable situation, be sure to call the employer as soon as you can and let them know you're going to be late. Another thing, of course, what you wear is very important. Proper attire can make or break an interview. Dress appropriately. For example, if you are applying for a job at a law office, wear a nice business suit. That will be appropriate. You don't have to be in the latest trends or the newest fashion to be impressive, but your clothing should be freshly laundered, modest, and professional in appearance. Clean-shaven and well-groomed hairstyles are necessary. Avoid eccentric styles of hair and clothing unless you are applying for a job at a cutting-edge hair salon or modeling agency, where that might be appropriate. Also, refrain from heavy perfumes. By carefully choosing your attire and style, you are able to avoid distractions and showcase the biggest asset of all, you. Now, the last thing to remember when preparing for this interview is the actual interview itself. You've done your homework, you've planned, you arrived on time, and you've chosen the most appropriate outfit. Now let's work on this interview skills. There are plenty of resources to access online about possible questions that the employer may ask you. This will help in preparation because you will be familiar kind of with some of the type of interview questions. And when you're asked questions, you won't stumble, such as when you're asked something like, where do you consider yourself in 5 years? Or what do you consider your strengths or weaknesses to be at your last job? The employer will be impressed if you readily know answers to questions such as these. And in addition, be able or readily available to discuss your job at your skills at your previous job. Now, this may sound like a lot of work from your side of the interview table, but the interviewer also has responsibilities too. Both you and the employer will have one opportunity to create a first impression. That's right. Remember, this is a two-way interview. You are interested in the employer just as much as he is interested in you and your skills. The initial impression, which often occurs in the first few minutes, can make a difference in the overall process. So let's not sabotage the moment. So what steps does an employer have to take to conduct a successful interview? When you arrive, the employer will introduce himself and anyone else joining the interview to you. Offer a firm handshake, maintain eye contact, and smile confidently because you have been prepared. As the interview begins, the employer may provide an agenda of the next few minutes. This provides structure for you and the employer to focus on answering all of the pertinent questions, creating respectable boundaries for the time management for both of you. The employer may ask questions about your past job experiences, as this is generally a good predictor of future behavior. Be aware that he will pay attention to how well you listen and answer his questions, including nonverbal, because this will also provide clues of your attitude and skills. Now, the employer may ask open-ended questions to draw out thought-provoking answers. It is the employer's responsibility to treat each employee or interviewee in the same manner, that's with respect. The interviewer will take physical notes during the interview to use as a reference when choosing the final candidate. Because you are also sizing up the potential employer as to whether you want to work for him or not, be sure to have prepared a list of questions to ask at the conclusion of the interview. It is perfectly acceptable to take notes of your own during the interview, if others should come to mind during the conversation. Be sure to express genuine appreciation for the time invested in you by the interviewer. The employer may let you know the next step in the selection process, such as an approximate time frame for filling the position. If there's a second interview, and that is a decision that will be communicating by whichever method is customary by the company. By following all of these suggestions of research preparation and implementation into every interview, you are setting a strong foundation for success, both in landing your dream job and in choosing the best applicant for the job. Remember, there's a relatively short period of time to gather as much information as possible to form a picture of whether or not this person is a good addition to your company. And the best way to be successful, either as employer or employee, is to know the ABCs of the interviewing process.